welcome. Thank you for joining us. Sean, it's great to meet you again. Great to have you
Likewise.
on the call with us. Just give us a little bit of a background as to what you do and actually where you are, because your background is awesome.
Yeah, it is a real background. It's a real one, not a Google enhanced one. I'm in a place called Casares, which is just a little bit down the coast in Spain from Marbella. Actually, it's a little bit further down. There's a place called Estepona that we are just past there. So I guess the next major stop would be Gibraltar, but I can't quite
Wow,
see that from here. So yeah, we're
wow.
here for a month, working and playing both at exactly the same time. And yeah, it's nice. So what you can see is actually real, and it's nice. What do I
That's
do right now? So right now I'm involved in two real streams of activity. I have what they call it a portfolio career, don't they, or fractional career now. So I look after I lead sales and marketing for a couple of organisations, one in India, one in the UK, really helping to set up and establish the sales and marketing function, and then with a view to at some point handing it over to a full-time employee once the organisation has scaled up and has sufficient revenues to support it. And then on the other side, mergers and acquisitions, although I'm really favouring the acquisitions rather than the mergers route. And that is a self-funded thing. So bringing organisations together that are in the entertainment, so event planning, production and delivery, and then all of the ancillary services that sit around that, from staging, lighting, sound, etc. It's been an area of excitement for me for, crikey, 20 odd years,
wow.
going back to 1988. Anybody who's lived that long enough knows what happened in 88. And that kind of set a fire inside me, and now I'm starting to deliver on it by delivering different types of events, probably starting in 2025 once all of the things are set up.
Oh wow, that's fantastic. So
Yeah.
that's great. So I'm intrigued. The events are like performers, or they're like speaking.
So they will be retreats for scale up and startup organizations, and there'll be a 3 to 5 day duration. So depending on wherever we are in the on the planet, so they won't just be in the UK, they'll be globally as well. But they're designed specifically to bring people away from their organizations, immerse them in an experience that is both fun, exciting, but also truly inspiring. So it's not just stages of speakers or rooms of speakers. It's actually, let's get in and let's kind of workshop through in an
Right.
environment that's friendly, safe, and encouraging, right? Because a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck into their career and they're running their business and that's all they do. And actually taking them out of their business, giving them the courage and confidence that the business is still going to be there when they get back, but also that when they leave the retreat, they actually come back to the business better in as many areas as we can possibly make them.
Right, right. That is fantastic. That sounds like it's sorely needed,
I
and
think so.
we're on this call to kind of help, encourage, inspire, inform managers who lead. And as you said, you've got an extensive career and a background in the, sort of the sales and marketing as well as this acquisition. So you've
Yes.
been around lots of companies and organizations that are maybe as yourself as a manager, but also you've seen sort of the management structure and hierarchy.
Yeah.
And what do you see as a major pain point and possibly an opportunity in those organizations for
I, I,
managers
I
to lead?
Crikey, yeah. I mean, there are many, and I think especially what we've been through. I know it's not. We shouldn't always keep referencing the COVID era, but that did force a lot of change in the management layer. So people who were managers being able to see, get not feel, but get close to their people in the organisation, and then that was taken away. And I think that unsettled not only that whole managerial strata, but actually the managers above them. They were now starting to think, well, actually, do we actually need them? What's the purpose of those managers? And that I think we still do to some degree. I think there are some industries that are now starting to realise that actually having that layer isn't probably that helpful. But I think there'll always be a level of the person who needs to get the change delivered is a good manager. So I think the opportunity is having that honest expectation. So what is it the manager is here to do, and how do they get it done? And ultimately, that job is all about people. And if you
Yeah.
don't like people, don't pick a managerial route, because you're going to get found out in about 4 seconds that you just don't like people, and therefore it's not going to work for you. And that goes really well with people who have been promoted, especially in the sales arena, right? Where
Mm.
they've been brilliant at sales. They've done 3-5 years of blowing the numbers, and then some bright spark says, "Why don't we make that guy a manager?" And it's like the single biggest fundamental mistake. All the missed opportunities of everybody else who would be a brilliant manager, and then you promote this guy or girl, and you just think, crikey, wow, you're that short-sighted. Yeah, the opportunity is have that real clarity of what is it the manager is here to do, what is it we want that person to deliver, how will we know, so what are the
Mm.
expectations that we've set coming down the organization and through the organization, and then what do we do if the performance needs correcting, or if the expectations aren't being delivered, or conversely, if they're being over delivered. Yeah, because that presents a whole different set of problems for a manager. Because all of a sudden, someone starts asking, the negative side is, well, maybe we set the expectation too low. Well,
No.
maybe
Yeah.
they're just brilliant and they've blown it. I don't know. But I think it's to have that really clear expectation setting, know what you want from them, how you're going to measure it, how they're going to be measured, and then communication to make sure that everybody's really clear every day on what's
Yeah.
actually happening here.
Yeah, that's powerful, because like you said, it is that managerial strata is where the stuff gets done.
It is.
And like you said, if you're not a people person, and essentially your role is to empower the objectives through people,
Yeah.
then you're going to suffer. And succession planning within an organization can
Oh, yeah.
is really highlighted as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, because somebody was talking about hire fast, fire faster, and then promote. I think it was actually we had that conversation, did we, about promote faster?
I'm not sure if we
Was it
did,
us?
but
Okay, no,
it's
it might have been
yeah,
somebody else. But somebody else was selling me on the idea that you should promote really, really fast. And I think I get the inference that you should, but I think succession planning is something best done. If you're thinking, if you've raised your hand and said, I'd really like to be a first line manager, and I remember doing this when I was at IBM, and
mm,
saying to my boss at the time, I'd really quite like to explore what it looks like. And he said, right, we're going to put you in a framework for a year. And at the time, I was, an impatient guy, and I still, to some degree, am, especially when it comes to trying to, ambitious in my career. I wanted to
mm,
get somewhere. Um, but he said to me, no, no, we're going to put you in this framework for a year, and you'll see why, and you'll get to experience these things. All too often, someone will go, do you know what, boss, I really quite fancy being a manager. The manager goes off on holiday and says, right, you have it for a fortnight. And then all hell breaks loose, and they still want the job, and often they're given the job as well. I think you need to plan it properly. You need to sit down with, not just with the person who wants the role, but go and find 2 or 3 other people who've got similar sort of desires, maybe different timelines, batch them into a program, and then see who really excels, and what sort of help you need to give to those that perhaps haven't got all of the attributes, but have some of
mm,
the human aspects that you really need to bring to management,
mm,
and then build a framework around them so that they can excel, and either in your organization or somewhere else, quite frankly,
mm.
because if they're not going to grow in yours, you should let them go and grow somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah. That's often the danger, is that you're not offering a roadmap for the good ones to stay,
Yeah,
and you're not keeping an eye on the bad ones to oust them out of the organization,
yeah, yeah.
and you end up with it being sort of upside down almost, where you
Yeah, yeah, and
yeah.
we've probably all been in situations where we've been managed, for want of a better word, by people who, frankly, should never have been given the job, shouldn't have even been entertained. It should have been you're never going to get well at this, so we're not going to do it. If you leave, you
Mm,
leave, but you're going to leave ultimately. If you want to be a manager and you're going to be rubbish at it, don't let them do it. Just
that's
don't let them
that,
do it. It's just going to be bad.
that's crazy. So in the sphere of sort of the acquisition side, in terms of you've seen organizations that you've gone into and invoked change. There's change of ownership, change of senior management.
Yeah.
speak to us a bit about the sort of the cultural shift or the transformational shift you see within an organization at that level.
I think it all starts with a vision. You have to have a vision that you can all align around. You don't have to agree. In fact, I'm famed for saying, a disagreement isn't a bad thing, but we must all align that this is the direction of travel. This is what we're looking to get done. Um, and then communication, almost to the point of over communication. So, what it is we're trying to get done, why you're important, why they're important, why this function is being considered differently. Um, don't make change quickly, not to, obvious change, move swiftly on that. But I'm talking about the more, when as it relates to culture, that's a long-term thing that, yes, you can affect it instantly, but actually I think you can mature. Or someone described it to me as harmonization, which I thought was a beautiful way of actually saying bringing the two organizations together. For me, where I've seen it work really, really well is find the people who are most alike in both camps and then bring them together, ideally off-site somewhere, and then let them see that actually we are more alike. Because oddly, humankind is actually, we are much, much more alike than we are different, right? And if we can just get ourselves to see that with our own eyes rather than being told it, actually sit down in the room or in a field somewhere, for instance, just sit with people just for a bit of time and you'll realize, right, okay, yeah, my job's not at risk because we're very different. I do things very differently. We're going to be managed in this framework, in this culture, and it's our job to make sure that as managers or leaders that we deliver on that, and that if we see problems, we don't let them fester. We deal with them quickly, and we deal with them in a human way rather than this odd way at the moment, which is management by email, which, if you're bringing two organizations together, trust me, that's a single route to fast failure. That is, try and manage problems by email when you're bringing two organizations together. Very best of luck with that. You're going to live painfully for a while on that one.
Wow, wow. So yes, I like that. I like that you bring in the fact that it is a it's not a B2B or B2C thing. It's a P2P. It's people to
People, yeah,
people,
it is. Yeah, it
especially
is.
bringing organizations together. And then, so how does that? I mean, it's an obvious segue or connection to that obviously speaks to people's personal and professional well-being in terms of, I mean, I can only imagine it being really stressful to be in a situation where your professional world or your company's world is turned upside down through that sort of massive change, and everyone's sort of feeling it at the same time. It's not just
Yeah.
you dealing with it.
Yeah, and I don't say this glibly, but if you want to mess with someone's mind, mess with their career, right? Because it's the fastest route to deep, deep problems that you as a manager or a leader invoke. And you need to be really, really careful about how you do that. I think it's really important that we are concerned with people and we make sure that everything we do is about the people. It's about someone says, "Oh, you treat them like family." I don't believe that to be actually what you should do. I think you should just treat them as human beings, as adults, as mature people who've got families outside of work, who they see less than they see of you, right? And quite often. So we need to manage it in that proportion and actually acknowledge that they're going to be spending more time with us than they are with their families. So we need to be really good and clear about how we create the right environment, sustain and endure the right environment. And I don't want to oversimplify it. It is be kind, be reasonable, be driven, of course, be ambitious, be all of those things, but just recognize that when you sit down, whether it's on a Zoom call, a phone call, or in a face-to-face meeting, it's another person at the other end. And sometimes they might not be as ambitious or as driven or as happy or as up or as down as you. And sometimes just take a couple of minutes. I love the way your meet starts with the just pause for the cause. Just before you get into it all, just take a few seconds. Just everything okay? Right. Let's just make sure it is. And if someone's telling you it's fine, it probably isn't. And you need to dig into that. And maybe you park the other bit that you've got to deal with until you've dealt with that bit first, because you're never going to solve your current problem while they've got that other problem in the front of their mind.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true, and yeah, like you said, pausing for the cause. It's kind of it can sometimes feel a little bit woo woo, in terms of the not harsh, but the sort of the business like things in organization. I love what you said about if messing with someone's career is messing with the person. It really does
Yeah.
impact, because a lot of us have our identity tied into our career or our job or our function, and I mean, speak to that a little bit in terms of the importance of being aware that your job is not you, right? I
No.
mean, you've worked with people that have to recognize that what they've done for X number of years
Yeah.
is not always truly a reflection of who they are and what they could be.
It's invariably nowhere near what they could be, and certainly often, very often, not what they're really capable of. I've seen it and probably been guilty of it myself, where I've seen a title that I want. Yeah, I've got to be the SVP of sales, or I've got to be the sales leader. And when you get it, it's like, well, hang on, nothing changed. Right? I order a new set of business cards. I got the same name, same number, but just this new strap line on it, and nothing in my world has changed. And then, of course, the change comes where all of a sudden the stress, all the aggravation starts to come because we've sought out this seemingly massive step into some nirvana state, and nothing has changed. You live at the same address, you go to the same work address, same telephone number, same email address, same people. So seemingly nothing has changed, but of course, in what's going on up here, has changed, and not only in our minds, but of course those in the minds of those that promoted us, and those above them who've got massive expectation now. Of course, that, well, we've raised you up, you have to do these things, start to really think that through. So yeah, I think I would, if I were to caution people, I would say don't seek out a managerial role just because you think your world's going to change for the better, because oftentimes it doesn't, and it can get an awful lot worse. And you need to be really clear about why it is you want to be going up the management chain, and also who's going to be looking after you, because you're going to be looking after a lot more
Yeah.
people all of a sudden, and you need to be clear that have I got somebody up there that's actually looking down and looking after me? Because if they're not, you are stuck in frankly, a very, very difficult place. So you need to be mindful about that. But to your point, your title is not you, and you are not your title. What you do is what you're paid for. Um, that's what they want. They want access to what you're capable of, what you can deliver for the organisation. But that's like the tiniest little bit of what you're actually. There's a side of the physical scale of you is just tinier to compare to what you can actually be. And I would encourage people, before you make that leap into the managerial layer, have a look around, because there's plenty of other really fulfilling jobs, meaningful and genuinely needed jobs that need to be done by people who could actually get into that role and love doing it, and maybe grow into a manager in that role. So, yeah, don't always think that the linear path into management is the right path. For some, it can be. I'm not saying it isn't, but you need to be mindful about that, because your world is going to change, not always for the better, not always.
So, yeah, that's great. I mean, a couple of takeaways from that is really the sort of the introspection of understanding where you are and
Yeah,
where you can add the most benefit and gain value from what you do
yeah,
in your work. Like you said, you spend
yeah,
a lot of time working, so
yeah,
being appreciative of the value you can bring is important, and also in terms of understanding, what that means. The linear thing is interesting because and speak to a bit about the ability to manage up. I mean, it's one thing being a manager, managing your
yeah.
subordinates, if you like, people in your team, but there's also an element of you mentioned that you put into a position and you may want support. Speak to us about how you manage up.
Yeah, and do you know what? I actually, in my experience, I find the managing the team below me. I don't like to think of it like
Yeah.
managing the team around me. That's how I like to think of it. That actually was the easy for me personally. That came really easily because I am very much about people. Anybody you speak to who's worked with me will tell you he always pushes us to the front. He never ever wants to be on front of the stage with the light on him who tries to push them. Managing up is, I think, singularly one of the most challenging things because, of course, you've even when you were a lowly sales guy, you had to manage up, but it was a different level of expectation. There was a different requirement of it. If you're managing 8, 10, 15 people, you shouldn't be managing 15 people, but if you're managing 8 or 10 people, you know, that's that's a nice cohort of people. You can get to know them individually, but you're managing up to 1 or 2 people who have very different expectations of you. And I think you really need to be super, super clear right from the very beginning. So that moment that you raise your hand and go, I'd like to explore that, you need to make sure that your ability to communicate clearly without setting false expectations, without setting yourself up for the trip ups, but also being really clear about where you see the challenges and how you're going to navigate them. Take that up with you. I think setting realistic goals without being too challenging. If you're told the number's 15% more than it was last year, and you want to have an argument about why it should be 5, ultimately you're probably going to fail, right? So you got to be able to, you should be able to stand your ground and advance, but negotiate with a principal, knowing that ultimately they're going to tell you what the number is or what the situation is. But you should be able to, I think, have a proper discourse up. But it is about communication. For me, that was the one thing I think I learned, well, I definitely did learn early on, is learn to be crisp, learn to be concise, be really, really clear about what it is you're trying to asking for or telling them. No bad news late, I think is a key thing that I'll always take away. And if you need the help, you must go. I've always asked my guys at the end of every period when we sit down and have a wash up, I ask them to bring a shopping list of the things they want that I can give them or go and ask for in order to help them be more successful. Just because I've asked them doesn't mean I shouldn't be doing the same up. Yeah, you should be asking and be really clear. You know, when my guys are always asking me about what they want, I don't ask them to write it down. But I find when you're managing up, short memo, or a note or something, just to prompt the discussion about these are the things I think we're going to need to be thinking about to start getting delivered. But know that you're going to encounter no more than you are yes. I think quite often is the case, and how to deal with that. Because if your guys ask you for 10 things and you go and ask for 6 things, someone at somewhere is going to be disappointed unless they managed expectations properly.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. And I like the way you kind of elicit those things very clearly and crisply. So there's some great takeaways in terms of how we present ourselves, not just to our team, but also to the people that we report to. And like you said, it's an interesting dynamic that you report up to fewer people than you manage, and
Yeah.
it's a whole different sort of headspace and dynamic. So
It is,
that's
and
powerful.
also, Steve, what I can speak for myself here, and I think a couple of other people that I know well. When you're managing up to those 1 or 2 people, I found myself scanning the horizon upwardly, thinking, well, I don't get any airtime with that person or her, and I really want it. And you need to be clear about why that is, because if you're going up 2 levels, you're starting to get into the rarefied air of where the real decisions are made and taken. And you need to be clear about why you want an audience with them. I can still remember with some embarrassment. I was going to say shame, but I'm not ashamed of it. But I can still feel the pang of embarrassment of asking for some time with a very, very senior vice president at IBM. And he gracefully said, well, of course, you can have as much time as you want. And of course, he's had plenty of people ask him this question before. I sat there, I had like 3 questions. And he said, listen, we've got 45 minutes. What other questions do you have? And I'm sitting there thinking, well, none, actually. Perhaps we could just have a chat. And of course, these guys don't do chats, right? They just don't. That was lesson learned very quickly. If you want time, tell them how much, and then get up there with 3 questions, and then get out quick, because you don't want to be stuck with 45 minutes on your hands.
That's that's powerful. My podcast is called the one-to-one thing, and you know the one thing is from Gary Keller's book about the one thing. So having that
Yeah,
specificity and that sort
yeah,
of laser-like focus, and like you said, that's a great learning lesson in terms of when you are in that sort of more rarefied space
yeah.
with leaders who are making those decisions, having a very clear objective, going in there with a container that supports you to get your point across and supports them to make it sort of timely and specific is important.
And it gives them confidence that you are on your game. The guy was
Mm.
very gracious. I mean, he wasn't, he didn't hammer me. He could have done, but he didn't. But he said, next time we do this, be really, really clear about what you want from me, and then ask me for it, and then you can go. He said, I'm not going to take any offence to that, and that to this very day informs all of my communication with everybody. It's very crisp. It's very clear. Um, it's unambiguous. It's not designed in any way to offend or unsettle anybody. It's just, this is what I want. I want you to know what I want, and then you can give it to me. And I find it's a good, for me, it works as a managerial style. I line up all my emails with, what I want from them in the subject line, how much time it's going to take them. So I know that if somebody sends me an email like that, that's going to sit right at the very top of my list, and I'm going to go, right, I'm going to start there because they know what they want, and I just got to give it to them. Um, so yeah, know what you want, ask for it, and then get out.
You go. And for those listening live or on the replay, this is that's a superpower right there in terms of when you're speaking to Sean, put it in the subject line because
Yeah,
that's his managerial style. And it's interesting because sometimes people they don't often articulate their style, so
no,
their teams are sort of fishing for how to communicate with them. And like you said,
yeah,
it's not a matter of being rude or abrupt. It's a matter of just
no.
being clear so that you can get things done. You can deliver, as you said a number of times. You can deliver on something because you're a lot clearer as to how things work.
Yeah, I think it forces you as well, Steve, whether you're in a managerial or a leadership position or any other position in the organization, it forces you to think through what is it actually I want? What is it I want from this discussion, this meeting, what do I want as an outcome here? And I find too many people think they have asked the question, and I've read, like everyone, a billion emails, and I can tell you 999,000 of them don't know what they're asking for. There's very few that actually just come up with it and just say. There's a great thing in the American Army. They call it BLUF, BLUF, and it's bottom line up front. So you might have, you know, 10, 15 paragraphs at the bottom of the email, but the bottom line, the ask, sits right at the very top. Hi, Steve. And then you put the bluff line in. I need your decision today on this level of investment to make this thing a go. And then below this is all the detail you need. And then you can just quickly scan through it and go, approve, debate, or whatever. And it's a, you imagine the structure of an army orders, whether you're on an operation or an exercise, there's a lot of stuff going on. You need to know what's the one thing or the things they need. And that needs to be, I think, top of mind, because then you're in the mindset of, right, they've thought through what they want. They've asked me because I can give it to them. Now I can give it to them. And if I think about that in a civilian corporate structure where you're managing people, the clearer you are right at the very beginning, and I would encourage anybody either new to a managerial role or moving managerial roles in organizations, get your team together day one if you can and say, this is my style. This is the culture. If you come to me with this structure, everything's going to really, really sing. Now, of course, each one of you will have your little kind of extra little bit that you bring to it. But broadly speaking, if we exist in this construct, we're going to have a great time because you can come to me. You don't have to give me 3 pages. It can be one line, right? And we're probably going to get there
Yeah.
because the more people you have to manage, the more things you have to manage, and the more decisions. And ultimately, I guess what I'm trying to say is the manager is in the decision making business. So help them make the decisions by being really clear about what it is you want. And the same goes when you're managing up.
Yeah, that is powerful. That is powerful. Sean, we've whipped through a good 30 minute, 30,
Wow.
well, 30 is
Okay.
odd minute session here. I've really enjoyed it. This is
Thank you.
bluff is. I made a note of that because that is powerful. The
Yeah.
bottom line up front is definitely a key superpower, and also just being aware of a management style and articulating that up front so that you can sort of
Yeah.
clear the deck, so to speak, and not have
Yeah.
that sort of that misunderstanding or things being misconstrued. Everyone's
Yeah.
got good intentions, but if they don't articulate it in a particular way, it gets lost in translation. So that's
Yeah.
very key.
It does. Yeah.
Any final takeaway points from uh, from our
Yeah.
chat?
Such a wide ranging subject. So
It
I
is.
would say, for those who are contemplating or aspiring to a managerial career, really think about what it is you want to do and why. Why you want to manage people, because it's not just about um, forecasts and a little bit of kind of reporting. It's that's kind of the easy part of the job because there's all the tooling to do that. So give some time, really think about what is it I want to do? Why does this next step in my career matter so much? For those that are in the positions and kind of scratching their heads every Friday thinking, why is this job so hard? Ask yourself, am I part of what's going on here? Because the answer is you are, right? And you need some help and you need to go and ask for help. But also, those that are finding it really difficult and keep referencing back to their previous role, maybe there's an opportunity for you to reconsider and go back. Now, not many organizations, and certainly people with inflated egos, most people with inflated egos won't go back. But I would encourage you to do it because if your ego is stopping you from getting forward, you're almost doing damage not only to your career, but to those that you're managing. And I think you need to be very mindful about that. So be yourself, really be yourself, be really clear about what it is you're trying to do, set a vision so that people can align around it, and then communicate to the point of over communication. So everybody's really, really clear why we're here, what we're doing, and why you're valued. And then I think there should be a piece of cake from there.
Very cool. And actually, as you said that, I've got one other sort of my encore question because
Go on.
you mentioned well in terms of the value and the impact of people of getting the help outside of the organization.
Yeah.
The role of a coach. Well, mentors within the organization is one opportunity. Mentors
Yeah.
in similar industries outside the organization is another, and then sort of the leadership management executive coach approach from someone who is outside of the organization, because there's a dynamic there that can definitely help. You've said a lot of times, what do you want in terms of
Yeah.
understanding what you want, and sometimes that can be better expressed with sort of outside help. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So, yeah, crikey. I mean, as somebody who coaches people, I would say this, wouldn't I? But I will say this. I'm stunned even today that in the corporate world, there is almost a level of reticence not to seek wisdom, which would be so powerful, so transformative, and have such an enduring impact that every other part of the business world, so sports, entertainment, they've all figured it out. Yeah, a singer. Show me one singer who's had anything in the top, in a reasonable chart that has not got a vocal coach, has not got a makeup coach, or artist. They've got teams of people around them because you can't do it on your own. And yet we walk into corporate life and think, well, it's all on me and I'll work it out. But you just won't. You need to seek external advice, wisdom, counsel. And I would counsel people to think about look for people who aren't in your field because they will ask you questions that will challenge you in a different way and yet ultimately get you back to where you think you are and where you want to be. For your career, your internal career within your organization, yes, I would encourage you to seek mentors, but look left and right of the path that you're looking to take, because they're the ones that are going to give you different insight to, well, not only what it's like to work over here, but actually ultimately, if your goal is to be a CEO, you're going to have to work in every single one of those functions. So you might as well start. So I think I would encourage people to do that. But whatever your aspirations, seek out someone who can give you an opportunity to think it through, because you will then find that well, in my experience, I can tell you this, most people I speak to don't know what they want. They tell you they do, and then you ask them 2 or 3 questions, and it is abundantly clear they haven't really given it. It's kind of, well, I want to become a manager. Why? Well, because I need to make some money. Well, okay. But ultimately, you might get a little uplift, but you're not going to make a lot more. In fact, your compensation could be very different to what it was before. So you need to, really understand why. I don't know whether that answers the question, but I think in a summary, I would say seek the wisdom that exists, look far and wide, always look left and right of where you're going, and think about it once you've been given it, and then act according to what this tells you. Right? Don't always just because someone like us has said to you, well, this is what you should do. And in fact, we shouldn't be telling you this is what you should do.
Yeah.
We should be asking you to think it through. We give you the kind of the landscape that you can operate within. It's up to you to navigate and ultimately arrive at your endpoint.
Yeah, that's awesome. You more than answered the question. I like the metaphor of looking left and right, because that is really important. Sometimes we can get blinkered in terms of thinking this is the only path, and also trust in yourself. The advice is just that. It's not a compelling instruction to do something as much as really make sure it aligns with what you want to do. I call one of my sessions, my sort of call-in sessions, a thinking partnership, and people have called me out on that in terms of they see the word partnership and think I want to sort of work with them, and I think of the word thinking because I just want us to get 2 minds together, and it's me looking left and right and seeing what's on either side of me.
Yeah, most of the work that I've been grateful to be given, and I don't advertise for anything, is all about, and it all starts from, and I can pin it back to, do you want to think it through? Do you just want to think it through? No, you're never going to get a proposal off the back of thinking it through, but do you just want to think it through? And the answer is always, actually, you know what? Yeah. And then the work comes. Yeah. So, the need is there, that much I can tell you, and I know you know that, but there's more and more people who actually would benefit from it. So if you feel that you would, park the ego and just seek out some support. You'll be surprised how, people back at your family, in your family life, will go, something's different. And it's because you've had a conversation with someone different about what you're trying to do, be, and achieve. So, I would encourage people to do it. Whether they pay for it or not, doesn't matter, but seek it.
Yeah. Amen. I think that's on that note, that's great. I think we'll land the plane there. But thank you so much, Sean Linehan, for that. There's no real call to action on this event, on this interview, other than sort of watch it, share it within the group. Love to have comments and feedback from myself and for Sean. And we're looking to grow the group, the managers that lead. So if there's something that we spoke about that resonates with you, you think you can share with somebody, then by all means do so. They don't have to be managers to get this information shared with them, because I think it's really a lot of it is interpersonal skills and understanding where we are. That big question is, what do you want, and being able to articulate that in an elegant and an eloquent way to people that matter, whether it's within a team or whether it's up or down the organization. So that's great. Sean, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. And I'm still so envious about that backdrop. It's not... He's just blurred out his real background.
It's a shame it's so blurred. I don't know, is it as blurred for you as it is? I'm looking at it, it looks beautiful. Really blurred.
It's beautiful. We know it's real because the leaves are moving, and it's just lovely. So enjoy Spain, and
thank you.
And we'll talk again soon. Thanks again.